Hello, everybody. I am Trisha Wolfrey from Your Empowered Self, and today I'm in conversation with Fleur Iannazzo, who is a money psychologist, and we're going to be talking in this series of how to manage stress on the very thorny subject of money conversations and money boundaries. I don't know anybody who doesn't struggle with this, so it'll be a really good conversation. But before we get into it, let's just ask Fleur what it is that stresses her out on a day-to-day basis.
Oh, so stressing out on a day-to-day basis. This morning is a prime example. I rocked up with my daughter to school for her morning club and got a whole bunch of blank stares saying, "But there are no clubs this week." I was just like, "Oh, okay, deep breaths, deep breaths, deep breaths, deep breaths. This is fine. This is fine. This is fine." But it's those unexpected events which are completely manageable, but still you're just like, oh, just shoved a bit off kilter
Change of
to start
direction,
off.
what we call a
Yeah.
curveball. And just for people listening, so school starts at 9 o'clock.
School starts at 8:30 and we
So
were there at 10 to
8:30,
8.
and
Yeah.
we are recording at 10 o'clock. So that's kind of, you had to sort something out really quickly, um, and organize something for your daughter, presumably, and then be in a good headspace to do this recording.
Yeah.
How did
Yeah.
that go?
Well, okay. So we sorted ourselves out. There was a cafe that we could go and sit at, and fortunately, I hadn't um, scheduled in something at 8 o'clock, which is what I normally do on a Monday morning. So that was like, oh, glad I didn't do that. Um, but also, not only is it the morning clubs, it's the afternoon clubs. So suddenly my mind's racing to, okay, what's happening this afternoon? And then how about tomorrow? How about the rest of the week? And they're like, mine's going away as I've got my daughter and people around. And instead of losing my cool, like I might be tempted to do if I were on my own, you've got to keep that calm for my daughter's sake, but also for my own sake. So it's all going on in your head while on the outside, you're like, don't worry, this is fine. It's all manageable. There's nothing we can't sort out. And inside, I'm like, oh,
And what is your daughter doing now? Is she in the cafe?
no, well, she was in the cafe with me, and we fortunately we know the cafe owner, so we got in before it actually opened as
Oh,
well.
that's so
Like,
good of
we're
them.
just seeking sanctuary. Like my whole morning's just gone to pot.
Oh God, that was very good of them. It's nice to have
Yeah.
a friendly person who's there when you need them, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
life kind of throws us curveballs, and you just got to deal with it as it comes up. And
Yeah.
you said deep breaths, and you had to manage yourself because there were other people around. That's kind of what life's all about. And I like the concept not to take ourselves too seriously. Laughing at things is I think quite therapeutic. And also, if you had to delay this conversation, then the conversation would be delayed.
Yes.
Nobody died. It's just kind of one of those things. It would have been fine. But anyway, here we are. So
Here we
let's
are.
let's go on to other thorny subjects.
Oh yes. From one slight stress to another.
Another one completely. And for those listening, I wanted to talk to Fleur about this because one of my clients had wanted to spend a whole session talking about this very subject, where she had to talk to a friend about a difficult money situation, and she really, 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 really struggled with it. So I was able to help her, and I thought, well, I think everybody struggles with this stuff, right? So I thought it'd be really good to bring the professional in. I was happy with the work that I did, but you kind of know more about this stuff. This is your bread and butter every day, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I know more about this stuff. I just think about it all the time.
Brilliant. Okay.
Uh yeah, because when I talk to people, a lot of the work that I do, it's about evoking what people already know like deep in their hearts or in their psyche. But helping them talk about it is where I like to practice.
So I guess that's about kind of breaking through the fear and the stigma of it all and getting to the heart of the issue. So what is it about money that just makes it so hard for people to do that?
There are so many layers to it. And I think fundamentally it comes down to the cultural taboo that we have about money, or about some money conversations. And because of that taboo that we've taken from our cultural tradition, we don't get to see good money conversations in practice unless we've been lucky enough to see our parents have constructive money conversations. But often, because it's done behind closed doors, we develop through life thinking that, money conversations are largely stressful, argumentative. They only happen when things boil over. Or we look to the media, or we might not be looking to the media for our examples, but that's where we get our examples. And if you think about it, a lot of media that we consume, it's about drama. So you're only going to be seeing the arguments. You're only going to be seeing the tensions or the pitfalls of, talking about money. So that's what we see. So no good examples really, really hinders what we can do ourselves. And then we just don't get any practice. So we can trot along in life going pretty well and, skirting around the issue until we get to a point where we actually have to have a grown-up adult conversation. And then we're tongue-tied because we have no practice.
Yeah.
So
the tongue-tiedness is interesting. That's the fear again, isn't it? What are the typical kinds of conversations, Fleur, that people struggle with the most?
Conversations with their loved ones. Because and whilst I do talk to people about negotiation in the workplace and in their businesses, it's the closer the person that they're talking to about money is to them personally, the harder the conversation gets. Because we wrap so much up in this concept of money, and we're consistently told to take the emotion out of money conversations. But it's impossible. Like, how do you take the emotion out, especially when you're talking to a loved one? So even right now, I feel myself getting tongue-tied about how to explain this. And yeah, it's the fear of rejection, the fear of being seen to be grasping, greedy, unloving because you're setting your boundaries, or because you need to keep something for yourself. You need to take care of yourself money-wise first.
So I think this kind of like, no, it's always emotional. I think if we can, let's come back to that. But let's have a context first. So typically, what are the actual conversations that people struggle with that might come across as grasping or selfish or whatever else?
It's anytime. Oh gosh, you said typically, but now I'm going to generalizations. Anytime that you're advocating for yourself, I think so. Whether it's settling the bill fairly, or asking for more access to money within a relationship, or asking for more support and help when you're making financial decisions. it is in that, you know, asking for more for yourself, and that can happen in so many different contexts. But I'd say, you know, the really hard one is when you have roles set up with your loved one, your spouse or significant other, or it could be a really good friend of yours, and you've been in those roles for quite some time. You've got your patterns of behavior, and then something's changed in your life where you need to change your role, your money role. So perhaps you've previously had enough income that you could be the generous one in the relationship, and then something happens in your life. Perhaps you change jobs, perhaps your circumstances change, and you could be that same generous person, but it comes at a cost to your own financial security or financial stability. And so, in a point like that, where you're changing roles and you're needing to ask for a little bit more from what you've previously been able to tolerate, it's really hard to shift that momentum and the pattern of behavior, because you're shifting the dynamics in the relationship.
Yeah. I mean, what I've noticed, especially at the moment, so as we record this, we're in a big cost of living crisis.
Yeah.
Where often couples kind of split cost responsibilities. Sometimes they put money in a joint bank account. Sometimes this person pays for that and the other person pays for something else. But because things have shifted so much, it's how you say, you know, I was paying this for, let's say, utilities. Now it's a lot more money. I need some more help from you.
Yeah.
And they may know the other person is also struggling, or the other person has got a hobby that means that they don't have much available cash either. So it's either the hobby or the cash, you know, and it can get very messy. So that's one of them.
Yeah.
Joint bank account where somebody is spending more than the other person is, and that can feel very unfair.
Yes.
And the splitting of the bill in restaurants can get very, very messy.
Yes.
So those are the ones that I've seen come up. I don't know if there are any more that are particularly thorny.
Oh gosh, just about every single money conversation can be a thorny one.
Yeah. What are you doing buying that label? You know, we don't need that, you know. So
yeah, we don't need that. You don't need another thing to wear. Like, why did you, especially when there are different money behaviors within a relationship? Someone might be a little bit more impulsive and somebody might be a little bit more analytical and thoughtful about their spending, but tensions might come up another way. And settling the bill, I think, is a really interesting example to take, because culturally, settling the bill can be treated in very different ways in different cultures. So I lived in Hong Kong for quite some time, and instead of having fights over who paid for what on the bill, the fights would be about who paid the whole bill, or who would be able to pay the whole bill, because to be able to pay the whole bill gave a lot of face to the person who paid. So you'd see fights going on, like, no,
I'm the most important person. I'll pay.
Yes, I'm the most successful. I shall pay. And there would be from an outsider's point of view, and also the people around, there'd be some really funny arguments about no, I'll pay, no, I'll pay, and you'd see shenanigans going on. You know, people would, towards the end of the meal, people would surreptitiously get up, go to the bathroom, and then pay on the way to the bathroom, and come back, so that when, you know, it came time for everyone to go and have the argument over the bill, someone had already won the argument. And
without the argument even taking place.
Without the argument even taking place. Yeah. And then there would be an argument about, oh, you haven't given me a chance to pay the bill. Who do you think I am? Blah, 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 blah. And I bring it in as a just as an example of how culturally we can treat tense scenarios in different ways, and that is a bit of a funny way to look at it from a British culture and Australian culture, where it's about paying your share, it's about paying your round, for example, at the pub, or splitting equally. There's this idea that we will all be equal, but actually we don't come to a conversation with equal, or to an event like going to the pub or paying for a meal with equal means.
So the example that my client had, I think is a very typical one.
Yeah.
So there were a whole group of friends, and there's one who earns really good money, and she said, let's split the bill equally. And my client said, well, actually, there's somebody there who, she's a new mum, she's got very little money, and for her to even go out is a big deal. And this was really interesting because she's advocating for her friend, but said nothing about her needs. And I said, what about you? And she said, well, I'm struggling to afford it as well. So she couldn't even say what her needs were. So I had to coach her on how to broach the conversation in those circumstances. She's now able to do it, but it was so interesting that she didn't want to hurt the friend who says, let's just all split it, but she didn't want the one that had very little money to stress about it, but no interest in what her own needs were.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she had, by the way, she had the conversation, and it's all okay.
Well done.
Nothing terrible happened, but it's just having that courage. So, I don't know if you've got tips. I can certainly say what my tips were in that particular scenario, but it is so difficult. And for example, this bill splitting, the cost splitting in a couple.
Yeah.
So I said, you don't need something that expensive, and somebody else might say, why aren't we having branded goods in this house? What is wrong with you? So it can go the other way. So it's how you approach that conversation and hold your own, especially if the person that you're speaking to might not be the most open or reasonable or something else individual.
Yeah. The first thing that comes up is that shame of even being able to admit that perhaps you're not doing as well with the pounds and pennies as your peers, but also
as your peers seem to be doing.
And also the fact that we are not very visible to our peers either. Or perhaps we all maintain this image. Come back to me this morning going, I'm fine, I'm calm, I'm calm. Whereas underneath, I'm really a pack of nerves. We maintain this image of I'm fine, I'm calm when it comes to the money. Okay, yeah, I can handle that because everyone else seems to be handling it. I'm sure if everyone in front of the school was having a good old Barney breakdown, I would have been along with them. So for me, it's making things visible. And sometimes we need to come at this with the idea that whilst some people might not be seeming very reasonable, we have to be brave to overcome that shame and raise their awareness and say, hey, at the moment, and this is what I say, it's at the moment, it's right now, it's not forever. At the moment, cash flow's tight. And I've found that phrase, cash flow is tight. You don't have to say I'm struggling. You don't have to say I'm not doing very well. You don't have to personalize it. You just make it clear. Cash flow is tight, and I'm not in a position to pay for really expensive stuff right now, or I'm not in a position to pay that part right now. And often just that phrase to say cash flow is tight, if you have the courage to say that, you might have other people saying, oh, yeah, you know what?
Absolutely.
You know
And
what?
you
It
know what can
is.
happen as well? So probably everybody else is heaving a sigh of relief. Do you heave a sigh of relief? Whatever you do with a sigh of relief.
Yes.
Is it heaving? I don't know. But also from feeling disempowered and small, you then
Yeah.
feel empowered, that and your confidence improves. So what we're doing is we're expanding our comfort zone, and when
Yes.
we do that, we grow as individuals. So then it's easier to set boundaries, other boundaries, that might be needed, and they probably are needed. If that conversation is difficult, probably the boundaries are difficult elsewhere as well. So it's
Yeah.
kind of it's very powerful stuff,
It is.
and makes it empowering and safe for others to say similar things as well.
Yeah. And
Go on.
the other tip that I would give to people who can see these difficult conversations coming in their lives is don't wait for the crunch point. Try to give a bit of warning, give a bit of context. So when the restaurant thing is being arranged, you can say, yeah, this is fine. Just going to let you know, I'm not going to be doing a big splurge tonight. You know how it is. You can just say, you know how it is.
I think that's a great thing to say. Yeah. Yeah. It
Because
just
most people do.
normalizes it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
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 With the one with your partner, I think choosing your time is really important. So again, just like you said, not waiting until it's really desperate, because you're going to speak from a point of desperation, and that's not never going to come out well. So trying to do it sooner rather than later, but choosing your time. So not when somebody's had a really bad day at work, not when they're just rushing out the door or stressed about something or hungry. You want to make sure that it's a time when they're and give a little bit of notice. Oh, I want to talk to you about something. Let's blah blah blah. And then there is an expectation, and there's a bit of context being given, and it's calm and planned. To me, that's something that's really important, and really getting your points in your mind beforehand, so that if it goes a little bit, then you can just stick to the facts rather than get it all emotional, and let it become emotional, because then blame and accusations and unpleasantness can creep in very, very easily. People get defensive, resentful, and it just kind of escalates, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it's the resentment that comes out with money. And this is one that we need to be compassionate to ourselves and compassionate to others when we're trying to manage our own resentment. And I'm avoiding the money ambush is something I've really had to learn to do myself with my partner. And what I learned the hard way was that I would be thinking about something for months and months and months and months, thinking it was really bloody obvious to my partner about what was going on, because I was tracking the cash flow and things coming in and out. But he just didn't have his mind on that. He had his mind on other things. And so I would get to a point where finally I'm like, this can't go on any longer. It's ridiculous. We've got to talk about it now. And so I would go into a conversation thinking that he had everything. He was thinking about this stuff as well and had everything sorted out. And he would like literally look at me and go, I had no idea. Fortunately for him and for myself, he would say, I am so sorry. I had no idea. I did not understand how much stress you were under. And it forced me to stop and think of, okay, how much am I assuming here?
Really good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we do make a lot of assumptions, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And something which is damn obvious to me, because I think about money all the time, was not very obvious to him. And perhaps it was part of my role that I had to change my stance and way of doing things so that it was a little bit more obvious. I took a step back and realized that, of course, that conversation where I ambushed him and, you know, I was packing nerves and like, this is it. I can't believe he's treating me like this. It was a terrible money conversation, but a great relationship conversation because it made me stop and think. And next time around, I gave him warning. I gave him a week's warning. Like, darling, I'm getting stressed about this. And I think we really need to talk about it. How about we talk about it next week? We sent our daughter on a play date and we went to a third party location where we knew we would be well behaved. So we went to the pub and had one drink each, but it was time bound because my partner's fear was that I would just keep on talking about this all weekend and then it would screw up the whole weekend for him. We gave ourselves an hour, you know, got to talk about this. Let's see what we can nut out in an hour. Let's have a drink, something to make us feel a little bit more at ease. So for some people, it might be having a drink. For others, it might be sharing some food, having a cup of tea, having a piece of cake, and
going for a walk.
Going for a walk.
Actually, having difficult conversations while you're walking really helps a lot.
Or in the car.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to face each other.
Yeah.
But you can still be together, just so long as there's no one else in the car. But giving him the time boundary so that I wouldn't be harping on all weekend about it. I said, look, we'll talk about this for an hour next weekend. He knew what he had to deal with. He knew it wasn't going to be a long argy-bargy about money. So I was really pleasantly surprised that he'd spent the whole week going, well, what on earth could be on her mind? And had done all of that thinking before we got to the conversation.
Yeah.
And it made it much easier.
Yeah. There's a great tip as well. If you're ever having a difficult conversation with anybody about anything, and it kind of lends itself very much to money, is rather than face to face and the person sees you as the problem because they're looking at you and you're talking about problems, have a piece of paper and just say, so I've been looking at the budget and what I see is that, you know, with these are all of our costs as they add up to, and so you show them the piece of paper so it triangulates and you are now on the side of solution with them, looking at the problem which is on the paper.
Oh,
do you like that one?
I really do. I'm going to steal that.
You can have it. You're welcome. I do that a lot with lots of different things. It's kind of making the problem over here and not here. Yeah. So I'm just thinking budgets. You know, that's great. You know, this is the bill that we got. You see, or this is a price of the tin of beans on the own label, and you know, do you see the difference? And that equates to, you know, whatever it is you're talking about. That's a great way of kind of taking the personalization out of it, and just diffusing something that can get really, really tense and ugly.
Yeah, it can get tense, and there is no perfect solution. And I think we need to understand that there's no perfect way to have an easy money conversation. I'm at pains to say I help people make the conversations easier.
Yeah.
But not easy.
So I love what you said. What was it now? Hold on. It was a difficult money conversation, but a great relationship conversation.
Yes.
So where we avoid all the difficult subjects, we're not in a great relationship because we're not really meeting each other. But where you can have these difficult conversations and grow from them and get to mutual understanding, and even if a row ensues, the reparation of that can make a relationship stronger. So, you know, even if it does get ugly, it doesn't mean all is lost. It just means, so, you know, for example, I would say, you know, I know this is difficult. Let's leave it for now and just ponder it, and let's revisit in a few days. Yeah, you know, when we've had time to mull it over. that's okay, because sometimes people just get very, very emotional, and that's what they do. And just giving them time to be with their feelings and in an understanding way can help diffuse as well.
Yeah, yeah. And that's one more thing to consider. You don't have to solve every problem in one conversation.
Yeah, good point.
And often we put pressure on ourselves to do that.
Yeah.
Like it's a one-hit wonder. We have one conversation and then everything's going to be fine. Oh no, it doesn't work like that.
Good luck with
It,
that.
yeah, good luck with that. Ask me how I know that that doesn't work.
The other thing to think about as well is, just picking up on what you're saying there, is that we can feel very responsible for people's feelings.
Yeah.
It's okay for people to have feelings, and we don't have to repair their feelings. But we can empathize with them. I know this isn't what you thought we were going to be talking about, or I know this is worse than you thought, or whatever.
Or it's come out of nowhere.
Yeah, just being with them on it and allowing them their feelings will allow those feelings to subside naturally, rather than be suppressed, or explode in a really unhealthy way. And that means just not taking it all personally, and not kind of thinking you're responsible for all of their feelings around this. You can be sensitive towards their needs, but you still have to have the conversation.
Yeah. It's really, I think, taking the pressure off solving everything, and understanding that the person you're having a conversation with can bring some really good ideas and solutions. You don't have to think of them all yourself either.
Yeah, mutual solving. What can we do? Because that way they're kind of part of the solution as well, rather than you simply dictating terms.
Yeah, or simply saying, look, these are the facts that I see.
Yeah.
This is what's coming up. This is what I've noticed.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Coming back to the paying the bill at the end of an expensive evening.
Yeah.
I understand, well, I know that there are some restaurants now that they will split the bill according to what you had. So that can be a really super easy way. So nobody has to do all the calculations. So that's one thing to think of. Oh, there was something else. What else is? Oh, yes, and there are apps, I think, that do that, aren't there?
There could be. I'm such a terrible person for apps, because I spent years kind of going, there must be an app for that. There must be an app for this.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, my solution has been, okay, I've got to change my own behavior. There might not be an app for that. But I'm all for pulling out the calculators at the end. I'm all for that funny conversation where you're going through going, who had the extra tiramisu?
I'm not for that at all. I did that recently. I was just like, oh my God, I've lost the will to live. I'll just pay the whole damn bill. I didn't pay the whole damn bill. But to me, that's painful. I tell you what, I'll do a bit of research. I'm sure there's some apps, and I'll put it in the notes.
There probably are.
Yeah.
But again, I sometimes have that conversation at the start as we're ordering. Case in point, I had a conversation like this on Saturday, and everyone was sitting down for a meal and a drink and this and this and this. And I sat down and said, I'm just going to have drinks. Is that okay? And there's an implied message there that we will pay for each of our things. And it was actually taken up in the conversation, and someone else said, yeah, I think I only want I want some nibbles and a drink, but I really don't want a full bang meal right now. And it gave everyone else permission to have their own thing. So again, trying to anticipate that end of the bill conversation in a way can help. But I guess it's just me. I'm so used to now having these conversations over the bill, because I make it a point.
Yeah.
And I
I
don't know
think some
what my
people will
friends will
still
say about
struggle
me.
with that. Sorry. Some
Yeah.
people struggle with that. But also
Yes.
there is the risk there of assumptions. So I can imagine a scenario where somebody said, yes, I know that you're only going to have drinks, but we're still, you didn't say anything about not splitting the bill equally. So to me, setting the expectation right up front, so I'm just going to have drinks, so we'll pay for our own stuff, then the absolute clarity, no arguments, nobody can misunderstand, nobody can assume. And you know, if somebody's not comfortable with that, then they can be uncomfortable, but it's what's happening.
Yes, yes.
Do you know what I mean?
And you're precisely right. Not everyone has someone like me who's just like, let's talk about the bill. And I might not be the most welcome guest at every restaurant, but you are completely right that setting expectations clearly without assumptions is the best way to do it. And I even feel in myself when I was making that example that that extra phrase of, so we will all pay for our own things, it didn't come out because there's still something in me that doesn't like that absolute clarity, that idea that I might make somebody feel uncomfortable. But if someone does feel uncomfortable about that, that says more about them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, and adding something onto the end, and that makes it easier on all of us.
Yeah.
Or I can just pay for my own if you want to split your bill, but, you know, things are a bit tight. I love that phrase. Things are a bit tight at the moment. You know how it is. I think that's
Yeah, you know how it is.
say. Yeah, that's a great thing to say.
The real challenge is when you do go into a restaurant and they just say point blank, we don't split the bill. Because there are still restaurants who are like, no, we don't do that. You pay all at once, sort yourselves out.
Yeah.
And that can be quite tricky.
Yeah.
That can be really tricky.
Yeah. So I guess if that's a real issue, is checking in advance.
Yes.
Or getting somebody who's really good with a calculator, which would absolutely not be me.
Yeah.
I can do something 10 times and get 10 different numbers. It wouldn't.
Oh, really? But maybe it is that, and saying, look, I'm going to do it, but we're all taking a risk here. If you're willing to give me that responsibility and that risk, I'm doing it once. Will you follow my lead? Let's get buy-in.
Yeah.
Because I've done that before, where people have just given me the bill to sort out, and I've had more wine than makes for good calculations, and I've just had to say, look, I'm probably going to screw this up. It's dark, it's late, I'm tired, we've had a great time, are we okay, all okay with that? And people usually say, yes, please just do the hard work.
Yeah, exactly. They don't want any of the work. Yeah, just tell me what you want from me.
Yes.
Don't bother me with the details.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I guess that's really about understanding who you're with in advance and how things generally play out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think these conversations become really difficult when you're in a more professional context.
Yeah.
So perhaps you don't know the people who you're with. Perhaps you can't be as friendly and offhand, and perhaps you're trying to maintain a level of image with the people around you. In circumstances like that, I think you have to be prepared to swallow it, but do understand what you're getting yourself into before you go into that situation. Yeah.
Okay, any final tip, or have we covered it nicely?
Oh man, I could keep on going for hours. It's different. It is very much different for everyone. But exactly what you said, you know, be clear, be deliberate. You might have moments of discomfort, but you also might open up a conversation, which helps everyone.
Yeah, and there's a phrase that I use a lot. So that discomfort is short term and the benefit is long term. So if you can just go through that discomfort for a little bit, the benefits are there to be had. Otherwise, it's just long-term discomfort that will get worse and worse and worse. So dealing with things sooner rather than later.
Yes.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Fleur. Now, I always ask my guests if there's a book that they've read that has been inspiring or helpful in their lives that they think somebody else might enjoy in the same way. Do you have one in mind?
Yes, I do. It's a kid's book.
Oh,
It's called Why Money Matters by Deborah Meaden.
is that Deborah Meaden that we know?
I think she's from Dragon's Den.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. And it's beautifully illustrated. It's lovely, and I've used it to start. And you can see it's from the library. I've used it to start conversations about money with my daughter. So I often get asked, how do you talk to kids about money? And my poor daughter, she's my little experimental petri dish, and I run most things by her to see if it flies or what kind of reaction I get.
Brilliant.
And her reaction to this book was really promising. She loved the color in it, but she also loved how there's the history and the storytelling of how money came to be about, very briefly, and really it was really accessible. And I read the book and I learned stuff.
Brilliant. So it can be for adults as well.
Oh yeah.
I don't think there's enough education about money in schools, or life skills for that matter. So hopefully that would be something that would be helpful to everyone. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I do hope you all enjoyed this as much as I do. If you did, then do please like and share, and subscribe if you haven't already. By sharing, you never know when it might land just at the right time to help somebody else. In the meantime, do take care. Nice to see you.